All right, we're back. It is COMP123 semester at Centennial, and it's week 10, part 2 of our broadcast. We just finished off doing the basic calculation. I'm calculated to death. I want something else, right? Yeah, well, we got to finish it because we're not done. We're not done because this simple little UI has lots and lots of stuff on the back end, and the stuff we're doing here with this calculator. The functionality that we want, being very specific and all those kind of things, is the way we build applications in the real world, right? Okay, so we've got a lot of stuff working, but what I really want to do is I want to get the other functionality working. The one I want to start with is the dot. So when I click the decimal, I want to add a decimal on. So it's like a button. But when I click the decimal, it's special. It's special in that it should activate the decimal on, or active, if you will, flag inside my application somewhere, so that I know now I'm working with a decimal. And furthermore, if I have a decimal, I shouldn't be able to add another one, right? My calculation should be, when I take the string and convert it, I shouldn't just be converting to int anymore. I got to change my data type so I can convert it to double, right? And then when I format everything and send it to the calculator, I got to basically make it so that it's at least a couple of digits of precision every single time, right? Now you might say, well, how much digits of precision should I send? And my answer to you is all calculators when they do it. And if I show you what I do here, if I go, divided by 3, right? I get 2.66666 all the way to 7, like lots and lots of precision, right? Ask it to truncate this as many as they can, right? In this thing here, we got to be careful because our little results can't take so many digits, right? That's number one. Next, if I go 7 divided by 2, though, right? I only get 3.5. So my digits of precision really, what I'm going to get back, right? It's only how many digits that I have that are significant, if you will. I don't care about going 3.5000000. It's going to be too many insignificant digits. It doesn't make sense. All right, so that's number one. And again, the way to think about that is if I go do something like 4 divided by 3, right? I'm going to get a bunch of non-terminating repeating decimal, 1.33333 forever, right? So that's okay. But if I get something else that's evenly divided or more evenly divided, like 9, divided by 1.75 or something weird, right? You're going to get something that's a little bit more complex. And you can see that there's a pattern, 14285, 7, 14285, 7, non-terminating repeating pattern, right? It's going to keep going on forever and ever and ever. That's another option, right? Math 101, right? 5 divided by, 2.25, right? Is 2.22222 non-terminating repeating. So you need a lot of these. Okay, that's one. So the answer is going to be weird. I'm going to get different decimal points depending on what I divide by. Okay, I need to set up for this because this is the next piece of my functionality, right? I need to set up another property up here that's going to tell me that my decimal is active, right? And I'm just going to call it, active decimal. So public, so prop another property. I'm going to call this, it's a Boolean, right? I'm going to say this active decimal. Active decimal is going to be true, is going to be false when I first start off. So I'm just going to make a property called active decimal. And by the way, these Boolean properties are just flags. That's what I call them, just flags that are either on or off. Do I have an active decimal or not? If I have an active decimal, I can't add another one, right? And that's one of my business rules for my decimal point. And if I have an active decimal, I got to respect it because it's going to mean that my string result is going to be a decimal type, not an integer type. All right? All right, let's try this out. Oh, one more thing for the calculator that we have to know. If I take a calculation like this and I go 8.0 and I multiply it by 8.0, it's going to convert to 64 even. No, 64.00. So I got to know that. That's the way calculators work, right? But if I go 8.1 and I multiply that by 2, right, I should get a decimal, right? That should happen. because it's a significant digit. So I got to chop off any insignificant digit somehow. Got to figure that out. If I need to figure it out. All right. So in my clear button, I got to say that my this dot active decimal is equal to false, because when I clear, every time I clear the button or when I load up my form, my active decimal is equal to false. All right. Now, when I click on the decimal, right? I click on the decimal. I don't have an event like that, but when I do, and I'm going to create one by double-clicking on my decimal right now. My decimal button click event, right? This is a special event. It's not going to be tied into any of the other buttons because it's different, right? I'm going to set, first of all, I got to do two things. I got to check to see if I have an active error. If I have an active error, can't click the decimal, right? So if this dot active error, right, is equal to false. If it's true that there's no errors, right, that's what I'm saying, then I can check. I can say that this dot active decimal is equal to true, right? I want to turn that on, right? First of all. Now, I also got to check to see if the active decimal isn't already true. So I got to check to see if that's true if there's no active error. So I'm going to say if this dot active decimal is equal to false, right? So there's no active decimal right there. I'll turn it on. I'll make this active decimal true, right? But if I go here again, it won't clear it until I've pressed the clear button, or until I press the any operator button. When I press an operator button, right, it should clear the decimal result because I got a new thing I'm looking at. I'm evaluating a new string, right? So this false should happen twice, or a couple places. Once when I do my equal sign, right? So I don't have an active decimal anymore. Well, so now I can't add to anymore. I can only clear if I press another operator. And the second thing is if I press the plus any operator, should clear my active decimal, so I can add another decimal later on to the second part of my, because I'm going to have two operands, right? The first operand and the second operand, right? And if I have a decimal on my first one and I press plus, okay, I'm saving that. Now I can do it again with my second operand, right? So I should clear this issue, this active decimal to false again. All right. So before I do anything else, I'm going to take care of those things because I don't want to forget, right? So I'm going to go back up here where it says active operator, and if there's no error, then I should definitely clear my active decimal, right? Because I can't click anything in there right away. So one of the things I need to do is clear my active decimal. So if everything is good, at the end, when I do my result text box.text, I want to say this dot active decimal is equal to false. I got to clear that up there. That's inside my calculator, my equal sign, right? And I also got to clear up, right? I got to clear up when I click on an operator. I got to do the same thing. So if I click on an operator, or if I click the equal sign, I got to clear my active decimal. So before I do my result text box.clear, right? I got to do this dot active decimal is equal to false. Why? Because that way, if I do one operator after the other, I can add in many results with decimals. Okay, that's one. The other one I want to do is this. I want to say that if I click the back button, and the last button that was clicked, if I have a decimal, if I clear the decimal somehow, how do I do that? How do I check to see what I'm clearing? Before, I haven't cared about what I'm clearing, right? If I backspace the decimal, then I've cleared the decimal, and my back button should be able to do that. Well, okay, that means there's all the changes we make to one thing, right? My back button, yeah, it's nice. It removes stuff, right? So it removes the last object that I'm removing, but I really got to check to see if my last object that I removed, what is it, right? How do I check what the last character is of a string? Strings again, right? How do I check? Before I kill it, by the way. Can't be killed first. I can't kill it and then check. When I kill it, it's gone. It's in the bit bucket. right? Here, right? So I got to say something like this, right? First of all, it's a string function, right? How do I check to see what the last character of the last element of a string is? I got to look at the string length, right? We already did this, right? Whatever the string length is. So example, result textbox.text.length -1. If that is equal to dot, the decimal, then that's okay. Later on, I'm going to remove the decimal. I'm going to kill the active decimal again because I can add it back, right? Otherwise, I won't be able to add it back again, right? Are you guys getting me what I'm saying? Because if I delete the decimal, but the active decimal flag is on, I won't be able to add it back in, right? So I got to, when I delete the decimal, I got to take the flag and turn it off so I can add another decimal again. Whew. All right, so if result textbox.text, and in brackets, right, because it's a string, right? The last character, result textbox.text.length, right, -1, right? That says there's an error, right? Why is there an error? I'm taking the last object that says cannot implicitly convert type char to type bool. Well, I'm going to say this: if that character is exactly equal to this dot, well, we got to check to see if this is true, right? Then I want to set this dot active decimal is equal to false, right? So that way I turn it off. Then I delete it, right? I don't want to delete it first and then check it because it's gone, right? Again, these are all cases. Think about this as each of these is a case that can happen, a test case. And in a real world scenario, I would have all this stuff written down in my requirements, right? If I'm building an app, I would think about all the different test cases I could think of and put them all down, every single one of them, right? And then I would go through each one. Okay, it has to do this. Okay, now I got to redo my code. Now, if I'm thinking about that, I can create a test-driven development, where I actually have the test fail. All those tests are fail first, and then I go back and I make them all pass. So I go through each one of these tests that I made, and each one that's showing up red as an example. I'm gonna go back later on. They'll become green. That's one way of coding. All right, we don't have time for that right now, but let's check out, see if this works. So let's try just making a simple example. So I can delete the dot. I can add the dot, but I can delete the dot. Oh, wait a minute. Forgot one thing. I got to add the dot in, right? So active decimal is true. And then what I want to do is I want to add the dot to the string. So I want to concatenate or add a dot to the string. So I want to say something like this. So result textbox.text, right? And I want to say plus equal to. Can I do that? Can I go plus equal to? Well, let's see if I can. Plus equals to dot. Right? I was able to do it up here with my operator. Take a look. So I did my regular stuff. So when I add in a thing, I say result textbox.clear, and then, oh, I didn't do it directly. I did it with a current result, right? Let's see if I can do it directly like this. And what do you think the answer is going to be? Can I do it? Let's see. So when I add it in, start it, and I go 5 dot, oh man. Shouldn't work. No, this is incorrect. This is incorrect. This is what we covered last time, right? So what I need to do is actually, it does what it's going to do what I've asked it to do, but that's not what I want because I've formatted my text box so it goes from the right to left. That's why it does this, right? That's what I can't do plus equals, this operator, right? What I got to do is I got to have a temporary variable, right? Or temp string or whatever you want to call it. I'm going to read in the current string. Current string is equal to the result textbox.text, and I want to add the dot onto it, and then take that current string and have that assigned to the text box. That's how it's going to be. So I got to say something like this. So up here, oh sorry, I can't do it up here. Inside the active error area here, I got to say something like string, current string, And again, we can make that equal to a string dot empty, right? We could say something like this. I'll leave that in a second. So I'll say current string is equal to result text box dot text. And the first thing we do, take the stuff from the text box, and then what we're going to do is down here, instead of this result text box dot text, we're going to say current string. We're going to add in the dot, right? And then when we add the dot, we're going to back to the result text box dot text. Result text box dot text is equal to current string. By the way, algorithm. Whenever we do manipulation like that, move things around like that, I know it's a very simple one, but this is an example of what we need to do to make sure that we don't lose the original values that we have, and we format the text that's going back out, you know, to the string properly. All right. So again, all I'm doing is I'm creating an empty string. The empty string is going to be assigned the value that's inside the text box already. Then I add in with the plus equals operator. I add in this. I could also just use the plus operator, current string plus this, but plus equals says, it's like saying current string is equal to current string plus dot. That's what I'm doing, right? And then I take that current string and put it back out to the text box. Let's see if this works and if I don't get an error. No? So 7, right, dot. Oh man, what happened? How come it didn't work? Well, because what I'm actually doing is this. I'm saying I'm typing in 7. I'm putting in the dot. When I click on the dot operator, right, put back right away, right? Because I'm taking it, getting it, and what I should be is clearing it afterwards, right? Because I'm taking the result text box dot text and making it equivalent to current string, right? And current string is going to take the result text box dot text. I'm going to add a dot to it at the end, right? And then I'm going to put it back. Well, let's do this first, just to be sure how it works. We're going to say result text box dot text. Let's see if we put the clear up the result text box, and then we reassign the string. Just to be sure what it is, let's just, from a debugging step perspective, let's go do a debug dot write line and see what my current string is. Yes. That's what I'm saying. That's why we got to figure out why, right? So let's see what this current string is, right? So here's a current string. And let's run it and see what we got. All right, so here's my thing. Let's look down here because this is where the debugging information is going to be, down in this output box, right? So I go 7 dot. My debugging string is perfect, right? 7 dot. Look, what happened? When I click 7, it should be not dot 7. It should be 7 dot. How come it's like the other way around, right? If I go 7 again now, right, and then I press dot, I can't click on a dot because I have an active decimal. This is good, right? But if I go plus 7, does it give me 14.4? No, it crashes stuff because it can't convert to int32. I'm trying to do a different calculation. I'm trying to do a decimal calculation, and I have a decimal. And this is where I can check. If I have an active decimal, I stop doing an integer conversion, and I start doing a decimal conversion, right? Or I always do a decimal conversion and chop off the insignificant digits, right? One of the two. All right. Let's fix this problem. So tell me, who's found the solution? Anyone found the solution what to do? Because we've been doing it the whole time. How come when I push another digit, like 7 or 8 or 9, it's okay, but not now? How come this isn't working, right? Because what I'm doing is I'm doing the same thing, right? Look up here. If I go up here to when I add 2 digits together. So here's a digit. So calculator button, click, right? All I'm doing is I'm getting this current string, which string is a current result. And I get the result text box dot text, and then I use plus equals to get whatever the button text is and add it in, right? Okay. I want to mention to you that what's happening is exactly what I'm telling it to do, right? It's writing things from right to left, right? That's what it's doing. And because I'm pressing the dot, the way it's formatting it, if it was formatted the other way, like if my text box was from the left to right, right, then it wouldn't have that problem, right? So it's a special case. Here's the question: do I want to fix it right now? I'm going to tell you from a minimal viable product perspective, I don't think it's a good idea. If you're going to make the smallest product possible that it works, may not act properly, it's a bug we have to fix, but it works. I'd rather make everything calculate because it's a calculator than fix a small bug that makes it look weird, right? So that's my choice. It's a design choice, if you will, right? Okay, so down in here, when I do this thing, this should work, right? My current string, blah, 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 right? I could also try and do other things like, I don't know, convert this to string, right? But really it is a string already. So even if I go to string like this, right? That won't help. I mean, some people may have tried this as well. Count, current string plus equals to, whatever it is. I'm getting the actual string that's right in my debug.writeLine. It's not that. It's my, what I'm getting is it's an alignment issue because I'm aligning it from right to left, right? That's what's happening. So it's going to go to the other side because I've chosen, when it sees a decimal, it's not my string, it's my box, the actual result text box. The result text box is saying, hey, if I see a decimal, it should be the other side. Right? So it's actually reading it. Now I'll show you, even if I convert it to string or do something else like that, it won't matter, right? One more test and then I have to move on, right? So if I go like 7 dot, right? It's wrong. Okay. Now what if I add 0 to it? Like, if I go current string is da-da-da plus 0. Well, that's bad because then I add an extra 0 in there. That's not right. And that's an insignificant digit. I don't care about. Okay. So let's leave it as is. Let's get rid of this to string because we don't need it. It doesn't do anything, right? We'll leave this as the way it is, right? And we'll come back and fix it later. What I want to do is up here, right? When my calculation stuff happens. What I'm actually doing is when I convert, somewhere, somehow, I'm going to convert this thing back. And if you notice, up here, I convert to int32, right? Because my first number and my second number get converted to int32, and then they get stored in my first operand and my second operand get stored, and then they convert it to int32, right? That's nice. But if my active decimal is active, right? My first number and my second number cannot be decimals, right? Or cannot be integers. They have to be decimals. So I got to think of this through. Do I want to make multiple variables to hold different types, right? Or do I want to make everything doubles? And I think doubles might be the easiest way to do it, not the best way. That's another bug that we're going to introduce, right? So let's try this out. So I want to make this, the first number be double, the second number be double. The end result has to be double, right? There it is. My Boolean divided by 0 is okay. This second operand, right, as an example, this can't be converting to int32, right? Although I could convert it to int32. I would take it to int32, no problem, right? But I think the most important thing is to convert it to double. So to double, right? And same thing over here, to double. Now I'm going to get a different result. So we'll see what the challenge is when I do this. Just converting it to double instead of integer, right? Huh? Let's see if this works. Just as is. Like I'm not changing anything, just changing the type. So go 7.2 times 2. Pretty good, right? How about if I go 1 plus 1? 2. This is good. I chops off the digits that I don't need. What if I go 7 divided by 2 equals 3.5? And if I go, 4 divided by 3, equals 2? Oh, man. Oh, man. Well, we got lots of significant digits, right? How many spaces do I have in my little box? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That means I can totally have a total of 9 digits, including the decimal place. that's a problem because I can't see this right now the way it is. So how do I format it so that I only can have whatever is before the decimal places, and the total length of this thing's got to be 9, right? That's a problem, right? Because I'm going to get as many significant digits as this is going to give me. So maybe what I want to do is I want to kind of limit it like 4 or something like that, or 3. And I got to be careful because what if I have a huge number, like, you know, a really big number? We haven't tried big numbers yet. But what do we do with these big numbers, right? Like our little box down here is limited, right? I could. Here's what I could do. I'm just going to put it out to you. Funky effects. Okay, I'm going to talk about funky effects here. What if I want to change the font size to a smaller size when it gets beyond a certain number of characters, right? So if it goes beyond 9, I'm going to shift the font size down 1. So I'm going to go from like 20 to like 18, right? See if that works. I don't know if 18 is enough, by the way, right? Well, let's try it out. So how do I do that? And this is the font size of the object. Now this is a workaround. This is not the solution, all right? But sometimes we need something to make it work. So how do I check, first of all, my result is greater than 9 digits? How do I know that that's how big it is, right? Well, my text box tells me how big the digits is, right? If I do a text box.text, I know the result text box.text, how big it is right away, right? Now it's not even going to flash it. It's going to be so fast you won't see it. But I can actually get the length of the text box, and if the length of the text box is greater than 9, right, then I can reduce the size of the text box. So I do it down here. I can say something like this: if result text box text length, right, and I'll say it's greater than 9, right, because 9 is the minimum I can see on the screen, right? Then let's try and change the font size. Let's go 2 levels lower. Let's go, instead of 8, let's go from 20 to 16, right? How do I do that? So I got a result text box. I've never done a thing before. Let's say result text box, instead of .text is .font .size, right? .font .size, right? Instead of equal to 20 is going to be equal to like 16. And here's the problem, right? If I do font.size equals 16, it says it's supposed to be 16 points, right? And what it's looking for is the font size is a floating point number, right? So I got to give it at least 16.0 F or something like that, right? It's looking for a specific size. It says, so it's a floating point number, font size, right? And it only does a get. I can't set the font size this way. It's only a get. Look, take a look. I only have a getter. That means I have no setter, and I can't set something. It says property of indexes font size cannot be assigned to blah blah blah. It is read only, right? So is there a set font size? Is there something like a set font size, or .font .set? Is there something like that? So how do I do that? How do I change the font .size? Right? I can't do it like this, right? How do I set it up? Well, back to the drawing board, because we want to change the font size programmatically, right? Change font size C#, Windows font, right? That's it. So here's my text box, right? Oh, that's cheesy. I make a new font. So my font is equal to a new font with a font size and a font, whatever the current font size, the font family is, with a different size. That's pretty cheesy, right? So textbox.font. So this is var textbox. So textbox will be the actual text box itself. And what I'm going to look at as the control that I'm looking at, I'm reading it in, but I can just go font is equal to new. Now, I don't know if font itself, let me see if that's true. So result text box font, is that a read-only value? No, I have to getter setter. So I can do that. So I can say font is equal to new font. I like that. And it tells me the font family, right? Now this is a bit of complicated stuff. Text box, whatever the text box is, .font.family, font family, which would be the result text box .font family. And then what we want to put in there is the new font, which is 16. Why? Because font is a property, and it doesn't want me to just set the size, right? It wants me to set up a whole new object, right? Font is actually a property, but the font property is actually an object. So I got to create a new object, right, to replace the old one. All right, so let's see if this works. Let's see if 16 is enough. First of all, let's see if it works, right? So blah, blah, blah. And we want to kind of start typing. So 7, 8, 9. All right, let's go back. Cool. So 4 divided by 3 equals. Oh, okay, it worked, but I got to set it back. When I click C, and I don't want this box to change size. That's bad, right? So I want the box to stay the same size, the font to change lower, so it kind of fits in there. It's a trick. It's not really supposed to be that way, right? But I want it to go back. So once we do this, we'll finish for the day, and we'll stop the calculator. We'll put it aside. We'll see. We still got a bug. We'll live with the bug for now. Later on, it's a much more complicated bug to fix, by the way, than I thought originally. And we'll go back, right? So let's clear this up. So clearing it doesn't do anything. Just put it back. So the clearing button has to take it back the way it was. So I've got to take this back, and I got to look at the original font size. When I go to here, and if I go to Solution Explorer, pin this up, and I click on the property and look at this particular thing, and look at the actual font, you can see that the font size is not exactly, what size is 36 points. So 36 points, that's okay, right? It wasn't 20, it was like 36, it was really big, right? So I could drop it down like to 20 instead of 30. I might be able to try something smaller than 36, but bigger than stuff. So I can try that font out. But the one thing I want to check out is the size of my file. So my size should be, regardless of what happens, 277 by 64, and that is the width and the height. So I don't care about the width, but my size height should be 64. Can I modify my size height? So let's go back to here, and so it's the size of the actual object is here. So where it says if my result text box dot text, once I change the font, but I want to change the size to make it the same. So I want the size after the font is changed. The result text box dot text. Size dot height. First of all, is it a getter or is it just a getter set? Okay, I can change everything. Is equal to, what do I say? 64. So I want to make sure that that's 64. Uh-oh, it's an integer, and it says cannot modify the return value of a control size because it is not a variable, right? Gets or sets the vertical component of this size structure. Oh. Just saying, right? Just saying, guys. It's in points, right? Where I have width and height. So I got to do both those two things. Well, I'm not going to just do this. It's got to be this, right? And I got to make it so that it's the same idea, right? So if I go back, it's got to be 277 by 64. I'm not changing anything. And that harkens, it tells me something that I gotta fix it, because if that's true, right? Every time I do it, it just resets the size back to what it was, right? Let's see if that works. Just as is, one change at a time, right? All right. We went special effects, right? So again, 4 divided by 3 equals. Man, what happened? Didn't change the size of my box. I could make it so that it's fixed size. I could say that, well, my size is 277 by 64, or I change the size so it's an awkward size, like 65. Right? I could do that. But here's the problem. I've locked my control, right? So let's unlock. So where it says locked, I get to unlock my control for a second, right? And I got to go back here and change this to 65. Now that's a, wait, how come it doesn't allow me to change my control size, right? Well, here's something you have to know about text boxes, right? My text box itself, right? Notice that there's control handles on the right and left, but there's no control handles for the size. Why? Because it uses something else for the size. The size is based on the size of my font, right? And it's based on the baseline height, right? And you have to check, it's another property that does not exist on this list, right? And this is what I'm saying, you know, it's a nice idea, Tom, you know, as a workaround, because we'll still see everything. We got to change it all back later on. So I can't change it like this, right? Nice idea, bad execution, right? How about other things? So this doesn't work, even if I try it, right? And if I try and reset the size of my font to whatever it is, it's based on the font size, even after I've changed the font. We know that 16 is probably going to be too small. Let's make it 20 and try a few other options. So make it so instead of 16 is 20. Oops, 20. See if that's a little better. Still not going to fix our problem, right? So I go 4 divided by 3 equals to, yeah, that probably fits, right? 20 is probably okay. What if it gets bigger than that? 8 divided by, you know, 8 divided by 9? Okay. Yeah, it's not really quite nice, right? Still doesn't do it for me, right? There could be much bigger options here that'll kill my box. All right, so here's an option for you guys. I can make it multi-line. Just saying, right? So what if, instead of doing it this way, gotta be careful here. We gotta be really careful here because it'll break our entire thing, right? We switch it back down to 20, right? And we turn multi-line on, right? Let's try this out. So see what happens when we go multi-line. So results, xbox dot multi-line is equal to true, right? Let's see what happens there when I go 20. So 8 divided by 9. I like your things. Oh man, just saying. Well, it's going to cut it back, so it's making a multi-line. But the problem is when you make a multi-line, I'm sorry, I'm going over. But if I make a multi-line, which if it's an option here, multi-line is true or false, right? If I go true on multi-line, right? Now look what happens. I get a height, right? I can play with the height to make it as big as I want. I need to turn the height on, make a multi-line, plus set a height size. So let's say undo. And what I want to do is make this 65 like I wanted to. Here's my 65 value. And when I go back to here, right, I want to go back and do that other stuff. So let's just remember multi-line is true. Remember multi-line is true. Got lots of work. Okay, let's do it by hand. Hello, text box dot size is equal to a new size of 277 by 65, let's say. We're always going to have that size no matter what. Multi-line is true. 8 divided by 9. Well, multi-line, right? More solution, stays the same size, and it doesn't shift around, right? When I click clear, it's got to clear it, and it's got to make it so it's smaller, right? But you know what I like? I kind of like this, right? The other one was too big, right? And this is probably the right size for everything, right? And so in my experimentation, I could even go make this even larger. So that the first part has a lot more digits that can solve a lot of issues, right? And that could be the solution, guys. All right, question around the calculator app. The calculator app was a big just example of how to make one. Next day when we get back, we're gonna do something new. I'm gonna talk about radio buttons. I'm gonna talk about other kind of controls, how to use, what kind of events do they have. And all we're doing is building components, different components, onto our stuff that we have here. I don't know if I'll use the calculator, I might use another thing. What about making multiple forms, right? Moving from one form to the other with a button, like a next button, or, you know, like we have, or an OK button. Or how about message boxes or any of that kind of stuff? We're going to deal with all that kind of stuff next day we get together on Friday, where I'm going to give you a small lab to help you with, you know, because all you've been doing is watching and looking at my form, but I want you to build something before you build your assignment number 6, okay? So see you guys on Friday.